What's up, everybody? My name is Brandon McCollum, also known as BMcC, and this is Nice Minds. I'm with a very, and I say very special guest, Claude Culotta. What's up, my dude?
What's up, B? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. So, I've known Claude for
Over 20 years.
20 years now, actually. Yeah, 20 years this year, because I moved to Maple Grove, I want to say...
it was around our birthday.
It was around our birthday. Our birthdays are 6 days apart. So, yeah, we met at Maple Grove Senior High, and we hit it off. I mean, because we had a bunch of mutual friends, because my friend Josh went to Maple Grove. He moved to Maple Grove before I did from Plymouth, and you started kicking it with Josh. And so, like, right when I got to Maple Grove, you were like, oh, new kid, what's up? I was new, too. And I mean, because you were new the year before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you moved from Baton Rouge.
I moved from Birmingham. I grew
Birmingham,
up in
that's
Baton
right,
Rouge.
that's right.
I lived in Birmingham for
forgot
a
about
year,
that.
and I went to art school there. And then I came out in ninth grade. So 1999, I came out as a lesbian. And then it was really hard to go from this art school to a really white suburban middle school. And so any friends, and then high school. So any friends that I had that were like, oh no, yeah, that's fine. That's a fine thing. I was like, okay, tight, we're going to hang out. And you were just one of those people that was like, oh, cool. That's my, that's my gay friend now.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause you were the first one that I ever knew that had come out. I mean, I know I had friends, that I found out later, that they were, gay or whatever, but you were the first one that actually I was like, oh shit. And
I was aggressively out.
Yeah.
Just very aggressively.
I mean, it was dope. I mean,
for 2001.
And you really taught me a lot about that, Yeah. I mean, all of it, really. I mean, there were times where I was the only straight dude at certain parties that we would go to. And it didn't bother me. It was, it was cool to me because I was learning, because it's something that, like, I never, as a straight dude, I never have had to think about before, and it forced me to think about certain things, because you became we became good friends, like, right away, like instantly.
Well, right. No. So, you would, like, just come to my defense right away when, because there was a fair amount of, like, bullying bullshit and whatever. And, like, so around the time I was 16, I was talking to my counselor, and they were like, the way you present, and, like, you keep talking about, like, wanting to be a boy, like, that there's this thing called transgender, right? And I was like, what? No, I don't know. I didn't know that. And it took me a lot longer to, like, decide to transition medically and physically.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time I ever went into a men's room, because I was like, the girls' room is just, it's like utter torture. It's terrible. And you were like,
I can't
fuck
imagine,
that.
yeah.
It was after school, and you were like, nah, man, I got you. And you just stood and guarded the door.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I didn't realize until you brought that up that was your first time.
Yeah.
Using the men's room. And then, I mean, you kind of did regularly after that, or semi-regularly, right?
After school, like, when we were just hanging out and there was no one there and we were doing theater or whatever. Yeah, but during the school day, it wasn't possible because I wasn't always with someone safe. And it was 2001. It was a really different time.
Different.
I didn't start regularly using the men's room actually until 2006.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, like, a couple years after we graduated, and I started, like, using a chest binder and, like, presenting more, just assertively as male.
But I also remember you started SAGE in high school, Straights and Gays for Equality. It stands for something else, right? Now?
I'm not sure what it stands for now. At the time, there was an LGBT group at school. LGBT, because that's all it was back then. We didn't have Q plus whatever. But the group was entirely private. You couldn't tell anybody who else belonged to it. You could say that you belonged to it. And I was just so out and so loud, and I was trying to meet girls, honestly.
Yeah.
So so I brought up with our guidance counselor, um, that it would be nice to have something more like a Gay Straight Alliance. Hey, y'all, we're right by the airports. There might be plane noise overhead.
The plain ambiance.
Every once, it's, you know, it's like a roaring for a few seconds. Um, I just want to be more active. Is there a way to do that? And she was like, well, yeah, you've heard of Gay Straight Alliances. We could do something like that. I was like, yeah, but let's not call it GSA. So we called it Straights and Gays for Equality, and we had our symbol was a pie, like a physical pie. We would like bring a pie to every meeting, and we cut it up because
I remember that part.
come for
Yeah,
the pie, stay for the equality was our tagline.
that's amazing.
Silly. I don't know if you could get away with it because everything is so much more nuanced now, but at the time it was a little bit radical.
Yeah. Once it started getting out there that we had formed that group, I mean, it was like a big deal, and people started wearing like straight pride shirts and shit.
Well, so the story with that, it was a big deal, um, because I wanted to be more activist. So like the week we launched, right? That's when the graffiti started going up, you know, Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, fuck faggots, whatever. I started finding godhatesfags.com in the search history on the school computers, and which is how I found out about the Westboro Baptist Church. It's always a fun story.
Jeez.
But you know, like it got a little, I mean, that's all sort of minor compared to, it got a little bit threatening. It
Yeah.
started getting a little threatening. And so I asked if we could do like the you know, the gay visibility week, where you did a day of silence and you did a day of like where you put up statistics of stuff and you just tried to celebrate, you know, queer youth and like get more
Hmm.
information out there. And we had some posters up of like suicide rates and homelessness. So anyway, all of these little Aryan fuckboys, one of the days they all wore these straight pride signs around their necks, and one of them dropped them in gym class. And I picked it up, and for like as an act of protest, I'm not even sure what I was thinking. I was 15, so I, you know, um, I wore it for most of the day. And then I got to one of my classes and they were like, "What are you doing wearing that homophobic bullshit?" And I'm like, "You obviously know I'm gay. There is no way that you don't know that I am the gayest person at this school." Literally, some goth kids wrote a manifesto about how gay kids are allowed to be too loud at this school. Like, there's no way you don't know I'm gay. Do you remember that?
There was goth kids that.
Yeah. There was some goth kids that were like, they were real angry about everything, and they they were like, you might hear you know, a lesbian playing the harmonica in the halls
Jeez.
about girls real loud.
What the
I
fuck?
was very annoying. I'm not gonna lie. I was a theater kid
Yep.
to the max.
Yep. Facts. I mean, you were never annoying to me, but yeah, I remember those straight pride shirts, and I remember going up to one dude and just straight up pointing at his shirt and being like, "Fuck that!" And turns out years later that dude came out, so I can't imagine what sort of like
Yeah.
closet torment he must have been.
Oh, I can. He was a very nice person. If you're watching this, you probably aren't, but if you're watching this, you're the guy who, yeah, who told me that, you know, that 9/11 was going to be the Taliban and not the Ayatollah. Good call. You knew. So, thank you for that.
Oh, that was that dude
Yeah.
that said that? Crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I just remember that just being like a moment where I what the fuck. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't do anything but just support you through that. I mean, because like you were the homie and you totally opened up my eyes. Then you ended up going to another school the following year.
Yes. I went back to art school, so I
Yeah,
ended up
it
at
was after
Perpich.
junior year.
Yeah, it was my
Or
senior
senior
year.
year, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you ended up at Perpich, which was dope because we ended up like meeting a lot of like cool people and
Yeah.
having, you know, dope parties actually. Like
Yeah.
we would
Yeah.
end up at my house a lot actually with kids that went to your school.
Well, your parents had
They were
they
always
had the
gone.
full bar and they were always
They were
gone.
always gone and they had the full bar. You're right. You're right. That is facts. And yeah, and I just remember some of the best times were with, you know, in high school were with like you and, you know, that crew, I would say. Um and but I mean around that time too, there's like, I was thinking about this earlier today. There's a good like between 5 and 10 people that like I really consider like foundational to my like music and creative, upbringing. You're one of those people because you and I actually would write together. Like,
Yeah, me, you, and D-Rock.
yeah, me, you,
Yeah,
and D-Rock. Yep. And D-Rock would like make the techno rap beats or whatever, and
yeah.
I started writing lyrics, and you were already like really, so I mean, I feel like seasoned writer at 16,
I
17.
so I learned to writing love letters to a girl in Alabama. And love letters are a great way to learn to write because um you're just kind of like pouring it all out of you. And poetry and metaphor are like acceptable, and it's not just like a list of facts about your day.
Right.
It's a creative process.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I was seasoned, but I mean, when I moved here, I wrote to her every day for like 4 to 6 months, like a
I
long,
remember that. Yeah.
long time. And oh no, that was a different that was a
Oh,
different
okay. That
girl
was a
I was
different one.
writing every day,
Okay.
also in
All right.
Alabama. Yes. I started when I started taking creative writing class sophomore year. I took it my junior year too. Uh, I could just like pick up somebody else's thing and be like, oh hey, if you switch this here and if you like cut that, like it's gonna be good. I started getting paid a little bit. A few times I got like $5 or $10 for editing somebody's creative writing piece just
Nice.
on the fly in
Yep.
study hall. And so yeah, when you started bringing me your stuff, it was pretty good. You were definitely learning your voice and bound to your influences. And uh and so it was, I maybe arrogantly was just like, hey, if you just kind of, if you say it this way instead, I think it'll be more clear, and I think it'll be more of like a, like more fun or more whatever
Yep.
thing you're trying to get across. And then you come back with something that was much better. So yeah, for sure. I love writing with you, and I learned, I don't produce. I'm not a producer, but I learned something about producing sitting in that basement with you, listening to what D was doing on his computer, and listening to like the way that you were delivering things and being like, "Hey, what if you tried it like this?" or like, "Hey, what if you
Yep.
added this thing?" And that was really foundational to being in bands later and being in the studio later, and like knowing how to go in and get it done. Like just go in and get it done, and we can get out 10 songs in 2 days and just have it be pretty good. And
Right.
um would not have happened without that
Wow.
relationships.
I didn't realize that, and that this seems to happen every episode that I do with a good friend. I learn something about myself that like I didn't realize before, and I guess I don't really think about just how foundational I also was to other people's, you know, careers or creativity or
I
whatever.
think about it. I think about working with you all the time. I can't really think of specifics, but just like every once in a while when I'm thinking about writing, or when I'm thinking about, oh, I need to do this with my band, my mind will just go back. Like the day somebody threatened to punch you in the balls in that
What?
basement. Somebody threatened to punch you in the balls. And again, you couldn't get away with this now, but I like cupped your balls and I was like, you don't touch his balls. And you were like, I've never felt so protected. And it was like very awkward and silly, but like it wasn't like it was two
Were they being
dudes being
silly,
dudes.
or were they being
No,
for
he was,
real?
well, when you're 15, you don't 16, you don't always know the difference.
Yeah.
And so somebody could think they're being silly and still might actually punch you in the balls.
Right.
It was
Okay.
that kind of thing.
I don't remember that. It probably was Josh or somebody. Like, I could see Josh fucking doing that.
It was somebody. Yeah.
I don't remember that at all, but that's fucking hilarious. So, yeah. So I mean, not too long after we left high school, you started Turn Back Now, right? How long was that?
So at first I was trying to do hip hop because that's what I knew from working with you, and I thought that I could. Spoken word was a really huge deal 2003 to 2005. You saw a lot of poetry slam kind of blew up right around that time, and a lot of underground hip hop. And we live in Minneapolis, so underground hip hop is like a
Yeah,
massive deal here.
for
So if
sure.
you're artistic and but I didn't feel like it was my voice. I didn't feel like it was my scene. I felt like everybody was, I mean, like in this point I hadn't transitioned.
Yep.
So there was definitely a stigma about lesbian, like super dykey lesbian
Oh yeah.
rappers. And I couldn't crack through. I think maybe my confidence, and you're all alone on stage, and that like
I almost forgot about that because you did have a few different like live gigs where you were kind of like doing the MC stuff. I mean,
yeah.
it was more spoken word, but
But it was
yeah,
over a track,
yeah.
and it was, I still do one of them. I mean, it's like I feel really proud that I was able to do any of it at all with how little I really understood about that world. Um, but it just didn't. It just wasn't. It just wasn't my thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I listen to so many different styles of mainstream music. I don't listen to like
Right.
weird noisy stuff just because I'm not that kind of guy.
Yep.
But I listen to hip hop, and I listen to pop music, and I listen to classic rock, and I listen to alternative rock and garage rock and lots of punk rock. Like
Mm-hmm.
rock and roll is kind of my favorite thing, but lots of different genres of it.
Hell yeah.
And so I was like, well, I don't play any instruments, which there is kind of another thing where it's like, oh, if you don't play instruments, then you're not a real musician.
Yep.
But I can sing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can actually sing, and I can write, and lyrics are my true love. So any excuse to get lyrics of any genre out on paper, on a stage, behind a microphone, I'm going to take it. And folk punk was just kind of coming up. Against Me had released some really great demos.
There was a Lifter Puller too, right?
They're not really folk punk. They're fantastic. That's more Turn Back Now. That's more when I like got into like bar band stuff.
Okay.
But when I was working with Patrick Callan at first, he just started coming over with his acoustic, and we would listen to Ani DeFranco, and we'd listen to the Misfits, and we'd listen to the Replacements, and we would write songs about what it was like to live downtown when you didn't have any money, and you were young, and you were too young to drink, and you just needed cigarettes and toilet paper, and you couldn't afford them,
Yep.
And we wrote a really fun record called the Park Sessions that we recorded with Brian Mingy.
Oh yeah.
At IPR.
Yep.
And
I almost forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah. That record, like we brought it to a party in Rochester that Nemo came to.
I remember that. No, I was there.
You were there.
Yeah.
Okay, so like
two people who lived there.
I still get people who that got circulated to.
Really?
Saying, "Oh my God, you're from Flynn Effect."
From that dinky little night where the two people, it was supposed to be a party.
There's a bunch of people in the kitchen. There's a bunch of people in the kitchen that weren't hanging out that like. Yep. And then they all had access to our record. So it got played, and then it got passed around because the scene in Rochester is pretty small.
That's crazy.
So I still, people who live in the cities, every once in a while, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you did that. You did the Park Sessions. That was you." And that's a pretty cool.
That's crazy. That's dope. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like listening to that record at all, but
I bet.
Yeah. Yeah, my voice was really pretty.
Dude, old stuff for like I can't listen to the very first project that you were actually helped me with. What was it? Was it I Want You to Say Whoa? Was that what it was called? My project?
I Want You to Say Whoa.
Yeah. And that was my first high school project that nobody will hear unless you've already heard it. And if you have a copy, burn it.
Don't burn it. Don't listen to it. Double it. Pass it around.
Throw it away. Throw it.
That's just my homie Grace and her sister May. I think she's
gay. Don't even quote it, man. Like, no, nobody will fucking.
It's not
hear
a cursed object. It's fine.
It's awful. It just makes me so uncomfortable when I hear it. I mean, even like I came out with an album, Mr. Nice Guy, that was like the namesake.
I have 5 copies sitting inside on my desk right now.
Really?
I do. The namesake, yes. I have like 5 copies, and you're never getting them back. They're mine.
I don't care about that. That's fine. Well, Mr. Nice Guy, like there's tracks on there that still hold up, like that I can still fuck with.
Well, it's your namesake.
There's stuff on there that makes me cringe.
It's where you got the name Nice Minds.
But yeah, Nice Minds,
Nice Guy Entertainment.
Yeah, all that stuff. It's where it all blossomed from. I mean that some of that stuff still holds up definitely, but I definitely understand what you're talking about with the earlier stuff, how it's hard to listen to sometimes. It's just like cringy.
Yeah, just some of it because I was so earnest. And I think that is your problem, like listening to yourself from high school maybe, is that you're so sincere.
Yeah.
And it's really hard listening to your own sincerity. But there's a couple songs off of that record that I still do. I still perform.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
Baby
what's
Keep
up.
Your Shoes On became one of
Oh,
Turn
yep,
Back
I
Now's
remember that one.
favorite,
Yep.
most like I still do Baby Keep Your Shoes On. So anyway, we did Flynn Effect and it was good,
I
but
almost forgot about the Flynn Effect name until you mentioned that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what's up.
um so I got married at like 19, and me and the guy I was writing with, we were kind of going in different directions. We were having a hard time communicating, and some things happened. Um, and I started transitioning,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really feel comfortable singing while my voice was changing and whatever. While I was figuring all that out, so um, I moved to New Orleans to try and save my relationship, and I moved. Oh, I almost forgot about this band. I moved with my friends Devin and Shane, and Devin's girlfriend Rachel, and my ex. Uh, and we were called Daddy Buffins and his train of
I
muffins.
remember that name. It's crazy. I haven't heard
Yeah,
that in years.
I still, yeah, I haven't said it out loud in
That's
years. That's a
crazy.
cursed object. But the we still do Turn Back Now. Did a bunch of songs from that too for a long time. So when most of the people I was living with developed coke habits, and I did not, and I couldn't get a job because I was this like,
Did you ever try Coke?
yeah,
I know.
not there.
I never did. I
Uh,
only did gummies.
sure. I don't, because I don't like I have a personality that like I have never been able to quit smoking, and I just
Yep.
like really like smoking weed, like but I don't put things up my nose because I don't like the person that I am, and I don't like to be around other people when they are. Like when I think about it later, I just feel bad, and I would rather not, so I don't.
Word. Years later, I find out people who did that or do that that I had no idea. And like I've always had a like healthy fear of most drugs.
I don't really want to talk about club drugs too much, but we can.
Oh no, that's cool. I mean, we could just breeze right by it, but
uh so yeah, everybody and the person I was with left me, and she came back and left again, and there was a bunch of drama, but essentially I couldn't get a job. I was miserably depressed. Most of the people around me were on cocaine or drunk all the time, and I just still needed cigarettes, toilet paper, and I was trying to find dog food for my dogs. So my mom bought me a plane ticket home. Patrick had come to visit, and he was like, you do not belong in this situation. This is horrible. You are miserable. Like you can't stay. If you come back, you can be in this band with me. At the time, he was calling it the Patrick Callan Band. We did some old Flynn Effect songs that were pretty fun. Um, but then the same kind of problems came up, and he was like, you can have this band. And he went off to Portland, and Devin came back, and he joined the band, and this guy Justin, and David. um and that lineup lasted almost 5 years, and that was meeting my current wife was in that time period, and
yep.
my first tours, and cutting my first really good records, the first couple of EPs we did, I'm very proud of. And like I grew up. I became a man. I started
Yeah.
feeling like this is how I take care of myself, and this is how I take care of my family. I was able to get work, and and have a pretty good run at that band. We wrote a lot of songs. The lineup changed a bunch of times. The last lineup was my friend Nate. Justin was the only other kind of remaining person from that initial lineup. And then Colby and our friend Alex, who moved to New Orleans himself during coronavirus. So Turn Back Now was from 2008 until 2020, and
Yep.
it's
You had a long run with
I
that.
had a long, really good run with that. I met a lot of great people who I love to shout out. The one other person that was in that band that I really want to mention is Matt Jarvie, and Rachel Curtin was also in that band.
Oh, yep.
Before we started working together with Twin Cities Bridge Club, which is me and Rachel, Just me and her and a guitar.
That's your current stuff.
That's our current stuff.
Nice. That's what's up. Yeah, it's crazy because I mean, we even though we didn't really see each other a lot um after like 2009ish probably.
The last time I saw you for a really long time was at like Big V's.
That's right.
With
And that was 10 years ago. Yep. That was right when I started dating Becky.
Yeah. And it was right when I had started dating Meg.
Yep. We kind of had these parallels in like our adulthood where like we were just kind of, you know, separate but kind of on the same sort of path to like growing up essentially.
Right.
Even though we didn't see each other for, you know, it's been few and far between.
Well, it took us both a long time to get our driver's license.
Yeah.
It took us both.
How old were you when you got your driver's license? 'Cause you got it years before mine, but like.
I was 26.
So yeah, then it was right. You couldn't have been because you got your driver's license before me.
Maybe 25.
You were probably 25 because I was like it was
2010.
Right.
I was 25.
Yeah. Okay. So it was right before me then. Yeah. Because I remember you rolling up to my house and me being like, I still don't have mine, and I think it was like the summer before, right?
I got it November of 2010.
Oh, November. Okay.
I got my license like the day before this first snowfall, and my girlfriend, my wife, my girlfriend was like, "I'm gonna let you drive my car, but God help if you crash my." She was so worried.
That's insane. I didn't realize. So it was only 3 months then because I got mine the following February.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because I remember you rolling up to you, but you drove a little bit before you even had a driver's license, though, didn't you?
Well, I had a permit and I had people with me, and they wanted me to practice.
So maybe
I would.
Was then,
I would.
You
know, I would drive. I spent that whole summer learning to drive,
Okay,
and I spent a lot of time with Nate. And me and Nate came and saw you.
Yep. I remember. Okay. Yeah, it must have been Nate then. Yeah, because I remember you rolling up.
Or Justin.
Yeah, I mean, because I was it was part of my anxiety. I was just like deathly afraid of driving for like 10 years. It was fucking weird. Like,
yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know what it was that like I can't even like as somebody who's driven now like had a driver's license for over 10 years, I can't imagine my life without it. Like it's weird.
Right. Well, and I had it had been hard for me to get my driver's license in high school for various reasons that were kind of beyond my control, but the truth was I lived in the city and I could take the bus.
Oh yeah,
true. And I didn't have the kind of job where I could save up for a car because rent is so expensive and groceries are so expensive and weed is so expensive and like
life
is expensive. Yeah. So like I got like once, and also I was really crazy unstable. My mom died right at the end of my like a year after she flew me back home.
Yeah.
She flew me back home and then she died a year later, basically.
What year was it?
She died February 2009.
Oh, okay. Because I remember meeting her like 2004-ish, 5-ish probably.
Yeah.
And then it was like 4 years later.
So it was just, I was really unstable. I was really unhappy. Basically, once I felt really comfortable moving around in the world with a beard and I had a band, and then I had like a best friend who wasn't an asshole, that would help me drive and like would take me around to find job applications, and like just somebody who was stable and normal and like good. Nate, you're just so good, man. I love you, buddy. All of these things that have been obstacles, I mean, I guess that's what people talk about when they mean privilege, right? If you just had somebody to give you a hand and like sit with you and do it and like help you get through it.
Yep.
Then you can accomplish so much more, and then all of a sudden you have some level of independence.
I failed like 7 times, something ridiculous, like
because you were so. I just bet it was nerves.
Oh my
too,
god, it was all nerves. It was all nerves. It was ridiculous, dude. I mean, it was insane. And then I met my girlfriend Becky, and that's what really drove me to be like, I need this. And I think I only failed after like I started dating Becky. I think I failed like 1 or maybe 2 other times, but I think it was just 1 other time when I tried, because I didn't try to take the test for like 10 years. Like I tried a bunch when I was like 17, 18, between like 17 and 19, and I just gave up until like, I met Becky, and I was like, okay, this chick has her shit together. I need to get my shit together.
He had that
And
sweet little Impala too. Once he finally did
yeah,
start driving.
yep. And then I had the Impala, which ended up being a fucking money pit. It was, oh god, I don't even want to think about the Impala anymore. But yeah,
Oh,
it looked good at least. It was pretty sweet. But it's just crazy because we had our like we came up kind of at the same time, but just separate. And fucking miss you, bro.
yeah.
Like I just miss you. Like how was 2020 for you?
So we got pregnant with our second right
Congrats.
before,
Mm-hmm.
right before, um, and so like that kind of took some of the pressure off, because it was like, oh well, we're nesting and we're home. It sucked because our basement had flooded a couple years ago, and so like everyone was crammed onto one floor of the house. Like all of the major living was going on one floor of
Mm-hmm.
what is designed to be a 2-floor house. Um, so there was a little bit of cabin fever in that respect, and I lost my band, which was uh I mean, I really only touched on it sort of briefly, but like what was one of the most important things, and like that was college for me. That was like, my first love basically was that
Yeah.
band, and so losing it was incredibly painful.
So when you say losing it, like what happened?
Well, our drummer, who's also from the South like me, decided that he couldn't do a COVID winter, and he left. And we hadn't been getting together to practice, and I'm kind of juggling 2 kids, and I was working full time, and me and my wife were both working from home, and it was really me.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I sat with it and sat with it, and everybody's getting side projects, uh and it was sort of time to let go.
I stopped running Nice Guy Entertainment as a label at the same time. And I just like clicked in my brain that like that happened too last year.
Yeah. And we all still love each other, and like we still work together,
Yep.
aside from working with the Twin Cities Bridge Club with Rachel, Colby, Justin, our friend Claire, our friend Andrew, and Nate are all in something called the Cicada Collective, which for the moment is mostly covers, and then like everybody kind of does their originals, so we do a great big set. We all still kind of play together, but it's not Turn Back Now, which was like this rowdy concept band,
Yeah.
bar band. We had comic books.
Yeah, that comic book stuff was dope.
Yeah, Colby Swanson, he is amazing, and he is still doing art. And go check him out. I'll have B put him in the show notes.
Definitely, yeah. Give me all the links.
Hell yeah. Yeah, and it was just like, okay, well, are we really gonna go back to well, this is gonna require practice 3 times a week, comic stuff once a week, merch meetings twice a month. It's
It's a
gonna
lot.
require
Yeah.
like being a full-time thing, and like to do what we really want to do, which is this sort of like Star Wars level epic.
Yep.
So I just said, I've already started writing the story that I was writing like as a novel. I think that might be a better way to get the story out. And so I still have it, and like, we can still play those songs and do that stuff because we're all still together. But it's not it's not the same. It's not Turn Back Now. That was
Yep.
this. But like being cozy at home actually was kind of tight.
Yeah.
This is just,
Yeah.
the worst breakup I've ever been through.
Definitely. I understand that. Yeah, I mean, when I think back to 2020, it's actually bittersweet for me. I
Mhm.
mean, because it was my last year with my mom.
Yeah.
And before she passed, I mean, before she got sick again, she was doing really well all through 2020. It was like because she went through her cancer,
Mhm.
had her treatment in 2019, and the treatment just so happened to be something that stripped away all her immunities. Um, and then a fucking pandemic hits, but I had a really, great, like I stayed with, my parents during that time, and like I was overly careful
Mhm.
around my mom and stuff, and we were like all really nervous, but like it was cool. I just got to kick it with her.
She was a wonderful person.
Yeah, she was amazing, man. I haven't. I mean, I did like a solo episode and I kind of went in depth about everything, but I haven't really touched on it very much other than that one episode. So like my whole memory of last year is just like I said, like bittersweet.
Yeah.
It makes me sad, it makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's all of that, and it was just like a huge growing year for me. I think that if it weren't for, because 2019 was devastating for me with my mom's treatment, and she was in the hospital for like 50 days, and I had just a string of bad luck stuff happen. I got sick. My car crapped out. Just a bunch of my fucking had like $3,000 worth of stuff stolen from me.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Just 2019 and 2021 have been the worst years of my life, but 2020 was in between that, and it was actually like pretty good because I was just kind of like I was healing from all the bullshit of 2019, and like I did a lot of reflecting and working on myself, and I really do think it was all to prepare me for what I ended up having to go through this year with what happened with my mom getting sick again, and passing and all that stuff. Because it was obviously, it was like the worst. It was the worst thing I've ever fucking went through. I mean, the last 4 months, I think the last month, I've finally like coming to some sort of like finally finding a balance again,
Sure.
and like able to kind of get back to doing what I love, like get back to the podcast, and
Sure.
get back to some freelance work again, and just working on me again. And yeah, dude, it's just been a mind fuck for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that. When I flew home from my mom's funeral in 2009, I turned around and I went and played a show at the Dinky Towner.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Long live the Dinky Town.
That was a great venue.
Hell
That
yeah.
and Uptown Bar, man.
Yep.
God bless the Uptown Bar.
Yeah. R.I.P. to those venues, man. Great times.
Great times. It's
Great
fine the
times.
Big V's is gone though.
Yeah. Oh, is it gone now?
I'm pretty sure. 2020 was bananas.
Yo, yeah. Yeah. 2020 was fucking insane. Like, all around, it was just fucking crazy. I mean, as much as like I said, like it was a bittersweet year. Like for me, I mean, personally, like I got to spend like a lot of time with my mom, but at the same time, it's like the world was on fucking fire, bro. Like straight up, like it was
Yeah.
fucking insanity. I mean, I still feel like it's on fire, but
yeah. There's so many moving pieces, and like so many conspiracy theories that have just like a little teeny piece of truth in them, but like you can't, like there's too many facts for anybody to really get their whole head around.
Yep.
And trying to stay really present and trying to stay really kind.
Yep.
And trying to stay really like sober minded and not let yourself get like spun off into despair or into rage, and like to really hold space for other people and like what they're experiencing, and like kind of all this collective trauma that isn't just happening now, but is like things that people never dealt with from years ago. That they spent a whole year inside having to process through. And I think it's been pretty cool to watch some people do that, and I think it's been really hard to watch the people whose pain is just too loud and whose like ignorance is just too willful.
Yeah.
Who I don't exactly know the right word. I don't exactly know the right word for what I'm talking about, but like it's sort of painful for people who choose to ignore human rights.
Yep.
It all boils to gay rights, abortions rights, and women's rights.
Yep.
The rights of Black people and Pacific Islanders and indigenous people and other people of color and immigrants and children.
Yep.
And people with severe illnesses or chronic pain or with neurotypical experiences of the world. Like all of those boil down to human rights. And like we've all been living on a screen where the person you're talking to isn't real.
Yeah.
Like the person you're talking to is not real, so you're not thinking like, oh, you have human rights that you deserve. And some of those people are actually bots, right? Like some of them are robots that have been like programmed to fight with you and fuck with shit and like make people mad, which makes things even worse.
Is there a lot of bots that do that? Like,
well,
I
in
haven't heard
2020,
a lot about that.
yeah, in 20, there's like a lot of the meme generation that was around the 2020 election when everything was really polarized.
Yeah.
A lot of that was coming from
Fucking bots?
From fucking bots. Yeah.
Damn.
So it's, I mean, well, and that gets into global, like all of it's connected, right? Like that's the also like why it's so hard to get your mind around.
Yeah.
And so like trying to remember that there are real people there that are going through real experiences, and then there are also like fake people that are just trying to like
stir the pot and
right
fuck shit up.
I don't know that any one person can do it, like can actually be okay right now.
Right.
That doesn't mean we're not trying. That doesn't mean we're not in these streets trying.
Yep.
Facts. It just means that like that's exhausting, and when you're dealing with like collective trauma and personal trauma, and like you're trying to work your job and you're trying to remember to eat right and you're trying to quit smoking and like
word for it.
You can't. Like, how do you do it?
Yep. Fucking exhausting. Like I'm exhausted, bro. Like I mean, like when you asked earlier before when we were setting up, you're like, I can't remember what you said, but you're like, are you all right, bro? And I'm like, yes and no. Like, I mean, yes, I'm okay, but no, I'm not okay. And that's like the best way to sum it up is just like I'm exhausted, from like every fucking thing.
Still crushing it.
Thank you. You are as well. I appreciate you.
We try.
We try. We've always been trying. We've always been trying. And I mean, you started a little like political chat that kept us all sane during the election times because we are both, and I don't even care who the fuck sees this. We are both very anti-Trump.
Yes, but also fuck Biden.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
It's too hard. It's all so hard right now.
Also, everybody just keep trying.
Yeah.
Try to stay kind. You've always kind of leaned to this nice guy thing, and I know that like part of that was like a response to you weren't very aggressive and you didn't want to battle rap and you didn't want to diss people and you weren't like about being mean.
Right.
Right, and the opposite of mean is nice, but you're actually kind.
Yeah.
And a lot of shit has been going around about kindness, and so I don't mean this on like a superficial meme sort of level. I mean like the decision to attempt. I fail at this, so this isn't me preaching. This is just like a deeply held belief that I have, is that when somebody is actively trying to be kind and trying to see other people's perspectives and trying to make space, hold space for there to be to hold more than one thing that is true in your mind at a time, that's rare, which is why I'm glad we've always stayed friends.
Yeah, me too. And that's what I've always tried to I think that's the biggest part of me is like I've always wanted to see from other people's perspective, because I've always, not always, but I mean especially in like the last however many years, I've definitely recognized my privilege as like a cis white dude, suburban, like I've lived under my parents' roof,
Sure.
a lot of the time and all that stuff. I definitely recognize my privilege, and I've always wanted to remain empathetic and remained kind and just know that like my experience is not everybody else's experience, and my experience is it's just not what everybody else experiences. And I think that's the biggest fault of a lot of people in the world is not being empathetic and not putting yourselves in other people's shoes. And
well, I mean God, the hard part with that right now though, right, is that there are people who are like, well, what about my right to hate you? And
yeah, that's the other side of it. Yeah,
I can't hold space for that because I'm too tired. I'm too tired.
Yeah.
I have tried. I've tried performance art, and I've tried, just like killing people with kindness and whatever. But like, there are too many indigenous women going missing, and black transgender women being murdered, and on it. I'm like, I mean, you everybody knows the litany at this point. If you're listening to Nice Minds, you are probably of a certain persuasion and proclivity politically. So like
Yeah.
you all know all of the things that I could list here. It's the there's too much pain in the world to make space for hate.
Yep. Facts.
So it's hard, right? Because like there's all those devil's advocate people who are like, they're sex trafficking babies, and it's like, the problem with what you're saying right now is that it's true, but you've chosen Donald Trump as your Lord and Savior
Right.
of the as the
Like,
savior
the
and
person that's gonna
salvation
come
of
and, like,
child rape victims. Like, just stop. Just
please,
stop
like,
it.
really? The delusion, man. The delusion.
But it's not like that is the delusion. But that's what I meant by like, there's a little bit of truth, because it's true.
Well, yeah. That is what you're saying. I mean, because obviously, like, the fucking child sex trafficking is
it's real,
and
Ashton Kutcher left Hollywood
horrible.
to go combat it.
Yeah,
for real. That's a real thing that happened. That is not something I'm making up.
Yeah,
So,
but the fact that they put Donald Trump as like this,
as
like
the head of the evangelical church, he's the Pope of the evangelicals. I also don't know how that happened. I don't understand how that happened.
Like it's insanity. Like the delusion.
This is 2020 for me. Our little group that we started was basically because I was just like, essentially what it was something bad's gonna happen, and I said that in the summer. Something bad's gonna happen. I just want a place where we can all come say, oh my God, look at all of the things that are on fire. What do we do? What do we do? And so everybody else in the group could be like, hey, it's cool. Calm down. But the whole reason was because I was like, something bad's gonna happen. So I'm gonna get these like-minded people together to just try and help each other. And sort of like a men's group. It was almost like a men's Bible study, but specifically about memes and crazy news articles that we were looking at. And
well, I just couldn't keep up with it. Like every time I checked it, it was like a million fucking things. So I would like read something and I'm like, oh, I got this to do. So like,
but what ended up being the thing that I had been dreading was January 6th. That was exactly what the concern was. And that also happened this year. If we're like, or last year.
It was this year. It was this year. That was 2021.
It was part of the.
It was 2020. Yeah.
It was,
It was the post 2020 wreckage,
aftershocks,
aftermath. Yeah. That shit was fucking nutty, and they're still fucking figuring shit out from all that. Like, and I feel like it won't stop for a long time
until it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But that's like 9/11, which also happened when we were in high school. Whoo, boy.
20 fucking years, man. That's insane. Yeah.
That is insane. Nope. I'm gonna let that thought go.
We can definitely move on. So what are you working on right now that you're really excited? You guys just put out a record, right?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit preoccupied with the Bible as a text and as a book and as a love letter and as poetry and whatever. There's 5 women mentioned in the lineage of Jesus, and all of them have these bananas stories. Like, one of them had to pretend to be a hooker so that she could fuck her father-in-law so that he could impregnate her, because his 2 previous sons who had married her had died because they wouldn't impregnate her, and then she had to trick him so that she could inherit, like, so that she would not be a beggar on the street.
Wow.
She's the first woman mentioned in the lineage of Jesus. So like, and all the stories are like that. They're like, all 5 of them are pretty much, I mean, they're not quite that lascivious, but they're all like, yes, she was a sex worker and she like smuggled these spies out of Jericho, and like, there was you go look it up. But the record is called The Cost of Fruit, and we just recorded that. I'm also working in the Cicada Collective. I'm working on, I don't know, probably a short story, and I'm working on a longer novel. But yeah, mostly I'm trying to keep my head above water.
Yep. That's dope. But yeah, your faith has always been a huge part of your life, and you've always held it really close to you. And um, I know you've been like in and out of it, but you've always really it you've taught me a lot about faith. I feel like.
I was only out of it very briefly, and that was kind of a reaction to um what I understood about God versus what I was being told by the church, all of the American kind of denominations at large.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I guess what I would say is that God confronted me in this really like personal way, and like I haven't been able to, like, it has been, you can't prove your faith, right? Like,
Hmm.
faith is a relationship that you're having with something that you can't see
Yep.
and that you just sort of have to trust is there.
Yep.
And um but the reality of the application of that faith in the way that my life has transformed when I seek kindness, when I seek justice, when I seek joy, when I seek peace, when I live in grace, when I live in salvation. Um, the idea that forgiveness isn't just a thing that you say, but it's like an attitude that you have towards people.
Hmm.
My life is radically different than when I don't live that way. So it's not just that, like, I've always been pretty deep in my faith. It's that my faith has been tested. And it turns out that everything that I was running from, I was right to run from, and everything that like had brought me to that point in the first place, like is real in more than just words on a page sort of way, but in like an actual physical, like love is a physical presence in my life. Peace is like not just something that you say, but it is an actual state that you can achieve.
Hmm.
Um, and is actually something that can happen to you and can happen to you more than once. And that's radical. I mean, that's radical. It's been radical in my life.
Yeah. That's amazing because I mean, you know me, I still feel like I haven't quite like found exactly what I believe in when it comes to that stuff. But I've never been atheist. I don't think I could ever call myself atheist.
Happy agnostic.
Happy agnostic, exactly. That's a very because I am agnostic. That's always what I or what I've come to terms with over the last like 10, 15 years about myself. And I'm still waiting for that like holy shit, this is what I believe in moment. Um bec-
But what you seek is peace and joy and justice.
yes.
And so those are the things that you get.
Yes.
So I think if you seek God's face, God reveals their face to you. But I think if you seek justice and mercy and joy, that those things do come to you. And I mean, I can't. I mean, maybe you're just a happy agnostic, and that's fine. Like that's it. But you actively seek the qualities and values uh, that the God that I believe in says that He is, and that we're supposed to emulate. And I would say that your life and your um, work and your relationships with people reflects that love that you have in general for people.
Absolutely. That's a really good way and flattering way to put it. I appreciate that. Cuz yeah, I mean that's totally true. And then that's what I love about people that I know like you, Mingy. I mean my brother now. It's nothing but good in their lives. And but it's all the bullshit around it that has kept me from like being like this is the truth. Like the you're going to hell if you don't believe. God loves you, but only if you believe in him. Like oh like that
Well, I mean, that ties in with what we were talking about earlier, but I mean, a lot of that has to do with classism and power.
yeah,
A lot of that has to do with political power. A lot of that has to do with money. And God isn't about that.
right.
So, we're told. I mean, that was part of my big problem with the church is that I was told not to pick and choose about how God felt about gayness, even though I have read enough um, scholarship that I don't think that translation actually holds that God is punishing people for falling in love and finding a partner and being together. I
Yep.
just don't. Um,
And see, that's where that's
But
what I think too.
right, but you read certainly translations of the Bible, and that's sort of, I mean, unfortunately you have to dig a little bit deeper in order to really grasp the, like, this is the context of the time, and these people were doing these sorts of rituals, and these rituals involved, like, molesting little boys, and, like, God was saying don't do that, and
Yeah.
but then those same people would turn around and would love money more than people, which God says is the root of evil,
Mm-hmm.
is the love of money. And he says the most important thing other than loving him is to love your neighbor. If, like, loving him, is something that's hard for whatever reason, like, the second best thing that we can do as people is to love our neighbor. And I mean, in Acts, what that means is, like, feeding the hungry and tending the sick and loving the poor and, like, the oppressed and the downtrodden, and seeking justice and seeking mercy, and, like, you know,
All that. Yep.
yeah, that's biblical.
Yep.
The stuff about, like, I mean, I could hijack the whole podcast right now to go on a rant about this, but I don't feel like it would be productive. So, suffice to say, like, I understand your objections. I understand your objections to, like, what the church, which is, like, a deceptive thing too, because there's the Catholic Church and these evangelicals, and there's the Methodists and there's the Baptists, and and all of that is really, aside from Catholicism, is really only, like, American Christianity that we're talking about when we have that conversation. That is abominable, that is sinful, that is like the Pharisees in Jesus' time. Then, like, the Pharisees that were, like, turning the temple into a mall, and yelling at sex workers and widows and beggars and saying, "Oh, get a job." Those are the same people from Jesus' time to now.
That's exactly the same.
Yeah. And Jesus wasn't about that. And
Yeah.
that's the amazing part. That's the amazing part, and the part that keeps getting missed.
But like I said, like, I have always admired that you carry yourself with your faith.
Well, thank you. And I think we should move on, because I will start rambling on about end times prophecy as it relates to, like, my faith, and, like, nobody needs to hear that right now.
I always love hearing about it, but I mean,
we'll do a follow-up. If you really want to talk about it, I'll do a follow-up.
Sounds good, yeah, because I'm always into. I love talking about it and hearing about it and just learning about it in general, because I feel like I still don't know enough about it, and I have a hard time with reading, like, Bibles and different scriptures and stuff like that, and just the way that it's written. And I know that there's, like, translations that I could get, but I just have always had a hard time, like, actually, like, reading it. And so talking about it and hearing about it helps me, like, understand it.
I always wanted to be a preacher, but I don't actually want to be a preacher, I don't think, because I don't want to have to, like, the actual employment of ministry is so different from my, like, actual interests, other than, like, ministering to people who need it.
That makes sense.
The sort of administrative side of it, I'm not sure I would be great at. But
right.
I want to make room in the dialogue, right? In, like, the dialogue of, like, our generation, for people who do love God, but, like, they aren't assholes, to have room, or like people who were in the church and raised in the church, and, like, there was something there for them, but they got chased out for whatever reason, or they had to decide, because it, like, they were taught about love, but all they saw was hate.
Yep.
So that is my artistic objective at the moment, is just to kind of try and make room for people to have conversation without it having to be about politics, and having it have to be about anything other than, like, hey, like, love is real, and God is real, and like we are able to be exactly who we are in the world, and still take the Bible literally.
Yeah.
And still, like, take miracles literally, and like to take God literally and not as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that a lot of people have responded to the church is just to say, oh, you had a lot of good ideas, but most of them are metaphors for something else. But that there is power in the active relationship of our relationship to the text of the Bible and our relationship to God, and that empowers us to move through the world um, with grace.
Yeah. We definitely got a lot heavier than I even anticipated that we would, but that's the nature of this podcast, bro. It's very loose. It's very informal, and I appreciate everything that you shared. I mean, we've been running for a little bit over an hour, but we'll definitely do a follow up. Well, do you have any last words for the people? Like, do you have any last things you want to say to tie all this up?
Yeah, check out Colby Swanson. He's going to be in the notes. Check out Omni Nagasi and Jesse Hedman. They're going to be in the notes. Our friends from high school, Carrie O'Halloran and Dane Schneider, are putting out a book of poetry and art. The Words I Saved from the Drain, I believe is what it's called, but I'll double check on that.
Word.
Go check out Twin Cities Bridge Club. We are on Instagram. We are on Bandcamp. You can go get our EP if you're interested in that. I want to shout out Rachel Gerton, my dear friend and music partner. Your voice makes mine better. And everybody else I mentioned in Cicada Collective. Mwah, I love y'all. Thanks for having me.
Fuck yeah. Thank you for joining me, man. I mean, we'll definitely do another one. I definitely want to follow up with you sometime, probably early 2022 or something, see where the journey takes you. And I hope that we actually find a way to collaborate more again.
I would love to.
Because I definitely would love to get your songwriting abilities on some stuff.
Keep crushing it.
You keep crushing it.
You keep crushing it. And everybody else, keep listening to Nice Minds. Because it's nice when things are nice.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you. Love you.
Love you.